Let me first hit the record button. All right. So now that this is officially recording, again, just welcome to tonight's Marathon Race Prep webinar with Coach Seth, owner and head coach of Cough Running here, based in the Chicago area. And if you are on this webinar, just go ahead and type in the chat box there. Let me know what race you are training for, and we'll be running here in the very near term. Awesome. We got some Chicago's, New York's, just like I thought. We may have a few other folks out there that if they're not on live with us, they're going to be listening to the recording that are training for a few other smaller fall marathons here in October and November. So that's cool. So, all right. So I am going to go ahead and get this presentation completely full screen here so you can see. All right. So what are we going to be talking about tonight? We are going to be discussing race week. We're going to be talking about race weekend, the morning of the race itself. Yes, we're all running 26.2 miles, believe it or not. We're going to talk a little bit about post-race. I'm going to leave you with some inspiration and then just some ways to connect with Cough Running. Certainly between now and race day, and then certainly post-race as well, because we want you to stay in touch. So let's just dive right in, guys. First thing we're going to talk about is race week, best practices. And like I said, this is going to serve as kind of an outline for my talk tonight. Take notes, especially if you have a question or something that I said doesn't make sense, jot that down, because there'll be plenty of time at the end to ask those questions. So the most important thing you can do as you get close to race day is to keep things as simple and familiar as possible. You've probably seen that in the weekly tips that you get sent. Certainly nothing new. So really, what does that mean? Of course, we're going to be eating the same foods that you've eaten throughout training. Training is really practice, right, for game day, for race day. And so hopefully you have started to hone in on what nutrition works best for you, and some go-to meals that you can implement for race week. You want to try to work out and run at the same time that you've been throughout training. It goes without saying getting plenty of sleep, but really especially Monday through Friday, because if you have a race on Sunday, you might find that Saturday night it's pretty challenging to get rest, especially for those of you who are traveling, maybe not sleeping in your own bed, in a hotel or an unfamiliar place, and just combating general race anxiety, nerves, which tend to plague me. So getting quality sleep earlier in the week is going to be absolutely critical. Don't bust out a new pair of shoes race week. You should already have your race day shoes purchased and with at least a few miles on them already. There's no specific formula for what type of or how many miles you should have on your race day shoes. I like to have anywhere between 20 to 40 miles on them, just to kind of know exactly how they're going to feel for race day. Certainly now is not the time to try a new gel or an electrolyte drink. You should, again, with your nutrition, have that kind of hammered down, and you should know exactly what you're going to be doing on race day. And then, of course, no deviating from the training plan. For those of you running Chicago, you're well into your taper, so you've got one more week to go, and you want to be as fresh as possible. And really, for those of you running New York, you'll be entering your taper period here pretty soon. So stick to the plan, no deviating. If you happen to miss any workouts and you're worried, certainly connect with me, and we can work on modifying or talking through things. Some more best practices for race week, and these are some items you really want to focus on as you get to the middle part of race week. We're talking like Wednesday, Thursday. If you have small children, are your race weekend childcare plans solidified? Now's the time to double check on those. And plan or have a contingency plan if just in case those plans fall apart. Be packed and ready to go. I like to be ready to go by Wednesday or Thursday of race week. this is just simply because this is going to give you plenty of time to make any last minute changes and give you peace of mind heading into race weekend. Expert tip there, dress for race day. So you're going to pack for race day as if the air temperature is a good 10 to 15 degrees warmer. So if on race morning for Chicago, you're going to be running and it's primarily going to be, let's say, 55 degrees, you want to plan for a race of about 65 to 70 degrees just because your core body temperature is going to warm up. And, it's always best to wear extra layers, and you can shed those just in case. So if you're running with all of your own nutrition or hydration and you're not going to be taking the Gatorade that's on course or using the chews or gels that are on course, make sure that you have everything ordered and in hand by midweek of race week. So if you haven't placed that order, you're running in Chicago next Sunday, now is the time to certainly do that. Of course, with online shopping options like an Amazon Prime, that typically getting those in time is not an issue. Or just pop it into a local run specialty store or grocery store that has what you've been using is also an option. But doing this just gives you enough time to pivot if you need to. Whether you're driving or flying, guys, check to make sure all is as it should be with your vehicle or flight details. Obviously, that's common sense, but you'll hear horror stories out there. Call your hotel to confirm to make sure all is well with your reservation, no surprises. And race hydration starts really no later than Thursday before race day. If you're waiting till race morning or the night before to start hydrating properly, then you've already waited too long. So I like to earmark Thursday as the day to really kind of start, and really you want to shoot for consuming half of your body weight. That's ideal in fluids. We've talked about this before. And adding a little bit of salt to your meals and your water will help ensure that you're staying hydrated and it's just not kind of flowing through your system. Race weekend. Now this is when the fun begins. Arrival. Know how and when you'll be arriving in Chicago or New York. Have a plan for food, where and when you're going to eat. Again, nothing new until after the race. A lot of you are running for charity. That's fantastic, but don't rely solely on the food that's being provided maybe at the team event you're going to. A lot of charities are providing team parties, pasta parties, if possible. I like to control what I can, so I like to bring my own food and make sure that the hotel I'm staying at, if I'm staying at a race that's out of town, has a fridge and a microwave. That way I can heat up my food. If you're depending on the pasta dinner the night before the race that your charity team is serving, you just really don't know how you're going to react to how certain foods are prepared in different kitchens. So in my family, we have all kinds of crazy allergies, so we like to control what we can. Spectator viewing. This is just a point that now is the time, guys, to get your spectator plan in place. So if you have a contingent of people coming to watch you, both Chicago and New York have these great apps, race apps that have a runner tracking feature on them where your supporters can track you. But plan out now where they're going to see you along the race, other than just the finish or right outside the finish. The Race Expo and Packet Pickup for Chicago is at McCormick Place. You can see the dates and times there next Friday and Saturday. The New York City Marathon is at the Javits Convention Center. There's 3 days where the expo is going on. Just note that nobody else is going to be able to pick up your race packet and bib, and really have a plan too of how you're going to get to and from the expo. Here's another expert tip. If you are driving and parking at the expo, primarily for Chicago, I wouldn't advise trying to drive and park to the expo in New York. Take public transportation. Don't forget to validate your parking before leaving McCormick Place. That'll save you about $20 in parking. And really, I can't highlight this next tip enough. Plan to spend no more than 1 hour at the expo to really minimize time on your feet. The expo is a hard concrete floor with carpeting laid over top. and spending any more than an hour at the expo is ill-advised. So get in, do what you need to do, see a few things, take it in, but then get out. There's going to be a lot of vendors sampling at the expo, the latest technology and recovery, nutrition, and energy nutrition. Remember, we don't want to try anything new before race day. I've heard a lot of horror stories um, that may or may not include myself early on in my running days, where I would sample everything at the expo and really came to pay for it on race day. So if you it does pay too, guys, to know the course. If you're not able to drive the course beforehand, which obviously in major cities like Chicago, New York, can be kind of difficult to do. I have included the links to preview the Chicago and New York City Marathon courses. I encourage you to do that, if for nothing else, to kind of get you pumped up for the race. It's pretty inspiring to watch and just take in the fact that you're going to be running all that way through two of the most amazing cities in the world. All right, so moving forward into race morning, this is the time where you're going to be changing your life, especially for those of you who have never ran a marathon before. So have multiple means of waking up besides only setting the alarm on your smartphone. So don't rely solely on multiple alarms on your smartphone. If you're staying in a hotel, have a wake-up call. If somebody else is staying in the hotel with you, have them set your alarm, or have them set their alarms. Have somebody who's not there but is a supporter of yours give you a call in the morning as well, just to make sure that you get up in time. No one wants to wake up late and be late for the race. Have a plan for how you're going to get from where you're staying to the start area. For Chicago and New York, these are very different. If you are running the New York City Marathon, you had to choose a transportation option to get to the start line in Staten Island. So really, you just need to know how you're getting to that transportation option, either the Midtown Manhattan bus, New Jersey bus, or the Staten Island ferry. So know how you're going to get to those, and those three options will get you to where you need to go. For Chicago, it's a little bit simpler. That's why I'm such a big fan of Chicago. You can park just blocks away from Grant Park, where the race begins, and make a quick little walk over to the start area and be in your corral in no time after going through security. So parking, here's another expert tip. For Chicago, highly recommend you book your parking ahead of time. You can go on the marathon website, and they recommend using Spot Hero. And if you don't have a Spot Hero account, you'll have to set one up, but then you can use that code right there to get $5 off. It'll pull up all the different options. Let me see if I can pop out of here and show you that. So I'm on the Chicago Marathon website. For those of you running New York, please bear with me. This is the section, the parking section, that they push you to. You can see the code right there to get $5 off. It's an app you can download if you have a smartphone. It'll take you to the Chicago Marathon parking event page. And as this loads here on the left, you can see the different options, how far away they are. So, really quite a bit of options there, and it's really, really simple. And I highly recommend doing that. Back, okay. Now's a good time to pause here. So let me catch my breath. And if you have any questions on anything I've covered up until this point, feel free to go ahead and type them in the chat box. All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on. And then, like I said, there'll be time to ask questions at the end. So also recommend bringing race morning throwaway clothes to wear before the race starts. Quite possibly it could be pretty chilly at the beginning of the race, especially for New York as we get later in the year. So bring some items that you don't mind leaving at the start line. And no worries, these items get donated to the local homeless shelters. So long sleeve shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants, sock caps, gloves, those types of things. Take a look at the race morning weather, what it's going to be hour by hour, and that's something that you might want to do. The last thing you want to do is you're an hour away from the race. You're standing, especially for New York, you're standing in the start corral, start village, and you're freezing, and that really kind of affects your performance, especially the first part of the race. Uh, Recommend arriving at the your start corral, 45 minutes to 60 minutes before it closes. This might seem a little extreme, but mind you, those start corrals are going to close 10 to 15 minutes before the race starts for yourself. And this is just going to allow enough time to use the restroom, which probably going to have to use that multiple times just because of nerves or depending on how you've hydrated. It's going to allow you to have time to warm up, stretch, and do whatever you need to do. But then once you're in your corral, it's time to start focusing on the race and visualizing how you're going to execute your race plan. Take a drink here. So the race itself, 26.2 miles. Recommend, guys, starting slow and taking the first few miles to settle into a strong but realistic pace. One of the biggest mistakes you can make, and this is a tip, are people taking off way too fast, getting caught up in the excitement of the start, and running 45 to 60 seconds faster per mile than what they really can, and then doing that for the first 5 to 10 kilometers of the race, and then really paying for that later on. So really you want to settle into a strong, consistent pace, and I would always err on the side of going slower at the start. So the Chicago and New York City Marathons are the two largest marathons in the world. There's going to be a lot of runners out there. It's going to be crowded. Really resist the urge to weave in and out of runners. Not only will it sap up precious energy, but you're going to end up running longer than 26.2 miles, and who wants to do that? Execute your nutrition hydration strategy. We touched on that before. A tip that I would point out is each hydration station is several city blocks long, and you're going to see people want to go to the first 2 tables of every hydration station. There's going to be just crowds and crowds of people there. Avoid the crowds and just keep running and go towards the middle or towards the end of the hydration areas. Like I said, those tend to be really less crowded, not a lot of runners there, and of course the volunteers are happy to help you, and you just don't want to be fighting with tripping over other people. You definitely want to smile, guys, because there's lots of opportunities to be caught on camera. Both races, or pretty much every race nowadays, have a professional photography service attached to it. Chicago, New York, there's going to be a lot of photographers out there, so they're going to be taking pictures, so you want to smile. Stay positive, and you definitely want to embrace the fact that there are going to be peaks and valleys along the way. It's a super long way to run. It's normal to question yourself from 1 mile to the next, but I would consider using a mantra like finish strong, or I got this, or just do it, or whatever works for you. Whenever that doubt starts to creep in, you're going to need something to fall back on. And I've used mantras throughout my entire running career, and it seems so simple, but it's really easy to kind of talk yourself out of what you're doing. So it's important to have a system in place like that. And really, you want to trust your training. For the last several months, you've been sacrificing. You've put in hundreds of miles, and you've really done the work. So now is the time to trust in your training. Take things 1 mile at a time. Don't look at it as, oh my gosh, I've got 26 miles ahead of me, or I've got 16 miles ahead of me. focus on getting from 1 mile to the next, because that's really 1 footfall at a time. That's all that you can control. You have no idea how you're going to feel at mile 24. You never know. You may feel great. You may feel awful. So just take it 1 mile at a time. And then my tip, when you do cross that finish line, have a volunteer place that finisher's medal around your neck instead of them simply handing it to you nonchalantly. You've earned the honor. Make them put it around your neck. It just makes that little moment with that person that much more special. So post-race, it is time to celebrate. So immediately after finishing and receiving your finisher's medal, you're going to have the overwhelming urge to just sit down, stop moving. This is honestly one of the worst things you can do. Keep moving. There's going to be volunteers in the finisher's chute pushing you along, but you're going to see other people sitting down. That's not going to be you. Doing that right away is going to just really cause your muscles and all the lactic acid to just kind of come to a head, and that's when cramping and muscle seizing will take place. So you want to avoid that. Know your plan for reuniting with your family and friends. Both races have runner reunite areas, so have that plan in place. Hopefully your supporters have downloaded the race app and they've been able to track your progress. They know they'll get an update or an alert when you've crossed. For both Chicago and New York, I would plan on, once you cross, it taking a good 20 minutes. Yeah, 15 to 25 minutes to actually cross the finish line and get out of the finisher's area to then where the runner reunite will be. So there's some time there. With New York, that's a little bit different. You're finishing in Central Park. It takes a little bit longer. So after crossing the finish line, you're going to be walking for a good, 40 minutes maybe before you finally exit Central Park and you're able to kind of connect with family, friends, transportation. So just be mindful of that. You want to try and eat a full meal within 2 hours of finishing the race. There's going to be food in the finishers area. There's going to be the complimentary beer. If you're not training for something right away after this, and this is kind of like your ultimate goal for the year, and you're going to be taking some time off, then by all means have the beer, but definitely get to somewhere to eat within 2 hours of finishing the race, just to start replenishing some of the energy, the glycogen stores that have been depleted over 26.2 miles. Obviously know how you're going to get to where you're staying. If you're staying in a hotel or you live in the area, have that plan in place. I strongly encourage you the night of the race to take a 15 to 20 minute ice bath. As uncomfortable and unpleasant as it is, it will help to flush the lactic acid and make Monday morning a little bit more bearable. Keep moving throughout the day. You don't want to get into your hotel room and just lay in bed the rest of the day. Get cleaned up, get out into the city, walk around if you're staying. If you're driving home right away, after you get home, get cleaned up, move around. Movement is the best thing that I can recommend. If you're getting a post-race massage, I would recommend waiting until Tuesday or Wednesday after the race, just to allow for some of that delayed onset muscle soreness to kick in. A lot of times people will get the massage on Monday, but it's really 2 to 3 days after the race when some of the most intense muscle soreness sets in. So there's a recommendation there. And then really, a day or two after the race is time to take inventory. Take inventory not only what went well in the race, but what went well in training. What could you have improved on, and what did you do well? How can you improve your race strategy, which includes nutrition, race weekend activities, and such. And now, a little inspiration. I'm kind of a cheesy guy, and most of the weekly tips that you get sent, there's some inspiration in there, but I think these are quotes that are applicable to us marathoners, us endurance athletes, and if you maybe you'll remember one of these when you're having a tough time on race day. But one of my favorite quotes of all time is by Henry Ford, and it's, "Whether you think you can or can't, you're probably right." And I think that's so true. Saucony which is a running shoe and apparel company. Tough runs or races don't last. Tough runners do. So true. We touched on this, but think about how far you've gotten, not how far you still have to go. Um, Typically, mentally, I hit a wall at about mile 16 because then it hits me that I still have 10 miles to go. That's that's sabotaging your own performance. Think about the 16 miles that you just covered. How amazing that is. The overwhelming majority of people in this world can't do that, will never try to do that, can't fathom doing that. So think about how far you've gotten, not how far you still have to go. Again, take it 1 mile at a time. Steve Prefontaine, a famous distance runner in the 1970s, said to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. I love that one. Um, every accomplishment starts with the decision to try. And then, of course, Nike's slogan for decades and decades, just do it. This may look familiar to most of you, but running is nothing more than a series of arguments between the part of your brain that wants to stop and the part that wants to keep going. So physically, you've got this. It's going to come down, especially that last 6 or 7 miles, to just mentally getting through it. And I love this picture. I mean, how amazing is this? How inspiring is this? Um, I've ran a lot of races. I've ran the Chicago Marathon many, many times. And last year I had the honor of running the New York City Marathon for the first time. And undoubtedly, when I'm having a hard time, all I have to do, or all I've had to do, is look around for inspiration. And you'll see inspiring people along the way that maybe have no legs and they're running on blades, like this little boy right here with a huge smile on his face, but puts things in perspective. So getting to a point of also knowing why you're doing this. If you're doing it for a charity, that's amazing. Know your why and continue to connect back to the cause or why you're doing the race, because you're going to have tough times, like we talked about. And but this picture, I feel like, puts everything in perspective for all of us. And then remember, when all else fails, Cough Running's slogan, as we borrowed by the great Walt Disney, is to just keep moving forward, one step at a time, 1 mile at a time, until you cross the finish line. And I'm going to leave up here ways to connect with Cough Running. But at that time, guys, that is the presentation. I'll just end by saying this and then open it up to questions. These are ways to connect with us. Stay tuned, because after your race, I will send out a post-race survey wanting to get your feedback about the race and about training. And this allows us to constantly improve our services. But if you have any great pictures or any pictures you want to share from the race or from training, please email those to me or share those on Facebook. Facebook is what we're most active on. If you haven't liked Cough Running on Facebook, do that and then share your pictures. We want to see you in all your glory. And then there's always the way to connect with us consistently with our monthly newsletter. So with that, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this journey with you. It's been an honor. And on that note, I'm going to open it up for questions. You're welcome, Shayna. Yeah, great question from Adrian. So, and I think, Adrian, you said you were running New York, right? Got it. Yeah. So Adrian asks, this is my first marathon, and every weekend is the longest run I've ever done. So the part I'm a bit nervous about is the taper. How does that work? Well, that's a great question, Adrian, and that's very common. People often ask, the marathon's 26.2 miles. How come I never run further than say 20 miles for most programs. And then after that, I start to taper down, decreasing mileage. Well, it's all based off the principle of accumulated fitness. So for that 16, 17 weeks, you've been consistently building mileage and building your body to be able to handle those longer weekend runs. And like you said, they consistently build over time. And so um, the human body is basically able to maintain or run for approximately 20 miles on its own energy stores. So what we're banking on is that accumulated fitness over the last 3 or 4 months, and the fact that you're going to be obviously taking in nutrition, whether it be water, Gatorade, Noon, um, gels or chews to supplement the the energy that you're going to be losing. So that will help, in addition to the accumulated fitness there, to get you to the finish line. The taper really is the main purpose of it is to keep you from getting injured. Really, truly, for your body to be fully recovered from that last longest training run of 20 miles, it would take about 3 weeks of not running for your body to be truly 100% recovered. And so you're not going to be fully recovered uh, when you get to race day. But if we can decrease the volume but still maintain the quality over those last 3 weeks, you're really going to decrease the chances of getting hurt when you toe the start line. So, and then, we're banking on that you all are pretty mentally tough people. Those last 6 miles of the race, it comes down to just gutting it out, trusting in your training, and then just putting one foot in front of the other and knowing that you can do it. So hopefully that helps. I would say don't be nervous though. Trust in your training. You've got this. You've been putting in the work. You're going to be continuing to put in the work over the next month, and really just have fun with every step because I got to enjoy New York City last year, and it's just an absolutely amazing race. I've never ran a more inspirational event than the New York City Marathon. Are there any other questions? Rain, yeah. Well, one thing that we can't control is Mother Nature. So for rain, I would really take precautions on protecting yourself, especially before the race. Since you're going to be doing the New York City Marathon, the start situation is a little bit different. You're going to be getting transported to Staten Island, and you may wait there for a couple hours. So I would plan on, obviously getting an idea of what the weather is going to be like. But I would certainly pack a poncho, something to keep you covered if in case it does rain. Um, if it's raining during the race, obviously there's not a lot you can do in terms of keeping your feet super dry. Of course, there's technology and apparel nowadays that are water resistant or waterproof as far as jackets and such. But that's completely up to you if you want to do that. But if it rains, just try to stay as dry as you possibly can before the race. And then I would just say if you've got family, friends coming to see you, try to connect with them as soon as you possibly can, as soon as you get out of the finishers area and get into some dry clothing. But the rain will not cause the marathon to get canceled. Hopefully that helps. Are there any other questions? And again, this is being recorded, so the playback will be available. And certainly, if you think of anything between now and race day, we've got those ways here to connect with me between now and then, or even after. I would love to hear from you. So we'll leave it open for another couple minutes. You're welcome, Adrian. It's been a pleasure working with you. How excited is everybody though for race day? Pretty excited, right? Very anxious. Yes, totally normal. So I'll be running in the Chicago Marathon this year, and I will be linking up with as many clients and charity athletes as possible that I have the honor of coaching. So if you see me out there, say hello. And for New York, I will also be out there. I will be along the course, cheering on the runners. So not exactly sure where I'm going to be, but I will let everyone know via Facebook where I'm going to be planted on the course, cheering the runners on. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and end the webinar. I just want to say again, thank you. It's been an honor working with you guys this summer. Um, you guys are super inspiring, especially for those of you who are doing it for charity and running your first marathon. It's just going to be an absolutely life-changing experience. I can't stress that enough. So thank you again, guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out between now and race day. And all the best to you, and have a fantastic evening.